Pay attention to the sound coming from the wall of apartment 4B at the Greenwood Terrace complex on the evening of January 14th. It's 11:47 p.m. The building is quiet. Most residents are asleep, but the woman in apartment 4A, Mrs. Helen Parsons, age 63, retired librarian, is wide awake. She's sitting on her couch with the television muted, listening. There it is again. A knocking sound. Rhythmic, deliberate. 3 knocks, pause. 3 more knocks, pause. It's coming from the shared wall between her apartment and 4B. Mrs. Parsons has heard this sound before. 2 nights ago, 3 nights before that. Always late, always the same pattern. 3 knocks, pause, repeat. The tenant in 4B is a man named Douglas Whitmore. He's 46 years old, works night shifts at a packaging facility, and keeps to himself. Mrs. Parsons has lived next door to him for 7 months. She's spoken to him maybe twice, brief exchanges in the hallway. He was polite but distant. She assumed the knocking was him doing repairs, hanging pictures, moving furniture. But at midnight, and always the same pattern? Tonight, Mrs. Parsons stands up. She walks to the shared wall. She presses her ear against it. The knocking continues. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Then she hears something else. A muffled sound, like someone trying to speak through cloth. Mrs. Parsons steps back from the wall. Her hands are shaking. She picks up her phone and calls the building manager. No answer. She calls again. Still nothing. At 12:03 a.m., she calls 911. Within 18 minutes, 2 police officers arrive at Greenwood Terrace. They knock on the door of apartment 4B. No answer. They knock again, announcing themselves. The knocking inside the walls stops. Greenwood Terrace was a modest apartment complex on the outskirts of the city. 4 buildings, 60 units total. The complex was aging but well maintained. Mostly working-class tenants, families, retirees, a few college students. Douglas Whitmore had moved into apartment 4B in June of the previous year. His application was clean. Steady employment, no criminal record, references checked out. The property manager, Carl Benson, approved the lease without hesitation. Whitmore was quiet. He worked nights, so he slept during the day. Neighbors rarely saw him. When they did, he was cordial but brief. He paid his rent on time. He didn't cause problems. Until Mrs. Parsons started hearing the knocking. Officers Jacob Sterling and Michelle Rojas arrived at 12:21 a.m. Mrs. Parsons met them in the hallway. She was visibly shaken. She described the knocking, the pattern, the muffled sound she'd heard. She said something felt wrong. Sterling knocked on Whitmore's door. He identified himself as police. No response. He knocked again. Still nothing. Rojas called for the property manager. Carl Benson arrived 20 minutes later with a master key. He explained that Whitmore worked night shifts and might not be home. Sterling told him to unlock the door anyway. The door opened at 12:44 a.m. The apartment was dark. Sterling called out. No answer. He switched on his flashlight and entered. Rojas followed. The layout was standard. Small living room, kitchenette, bathroom, 1 bedroom. The furniture was minimal. A couch, a television, a small table. The place was clean. Almost too clean. No personal items visible. No photographs. No clutter. Sterling checked the bedroom. Empty. The bed was made. The closet contained a few shirts and pants. Work boots on the floor. The bathroom was empty. The kitchen was empty. Douglas Whitmore was not home. But as Sterling walked back through the living room, he noticed something. The wall between the living room and bedroom looked different. The paint was slightly mismatched. The seams were visible. New drywall had been installed recently. Sterling knocked on the wall. It sounded hollow. He knocked again. From inside the wall came a response. 3 knocks. Sterling radioed for backup immediately. Rojas cleared the other residents from the 4th floor. Within minutes, additional officers arrived. Detective Paul Hendricks took command of the scene. Hendricks examined the wall. The drywall was recent, amateur installation. The screws were visible. He used a utility knife to score the seams. Then, he and Sterling began pulling away sections of drywall. Behind the drywall was a narrow space, approximately 3 feet wide, 6 feet tall, 8 feet deep. It had been carved out of what was originally a closet. The original wall had been removed. The space had been sealed off from the bedroom and concealed behind new drywall in the living room. Inside the space was a woman. She was sitting on the floor. Her hands were bound with zip ties. Her ankles were bound. Duct tape covered her mouth. Her eyes were wide with terror. She was emaciated. Her clothes were filthy. She couldn't stand. Paramedics were called immediately. Officers cut the zip ties. They removed the duct tape gently. The woman gasped for air. She was shaking violently. She couldn't speak. She was carried out on a stretcher and transported to County General Hospital under police escort. In the hospital, doctors determined she was severely dehydrated and malnourished. She had pressure sores on her back and legs. She had infections from the restraints. She'd lost significant weight. She had bruising on her arms and ribs. It took 6 hours before she could tell them her name. Her name was Tara Nichols. She was 27 years old. She had been missing for 53 days. Tara Nichols had last been seen on November 22nd. She'd been walking home from her job as a server at a downtown restaurant. She lived in an apartment 2 miles from Greenwood Terrace. She never made it home. Her roommate, Erica Hughes, reported her missing the following morning. Tara's phone went straight to voicemail. Her social media had gone silent. Her bank account showed no activity after November 22nd. Detective Amy Carlson led the initial investigation. Tara's route home was reviewed. Security footage showed her leaving the restaurant at 10:52 p.m. She walked north on Franklin Street. At 11:08 p.m., footage from a convenience store showed her passing by. After that, nothing. No witnesses. No additional footage. No leads. Tara's family appeared on local news pleading for information. A reward was offered. Search parties combed the area. Flyers were distributed throughout the city. The case went cold. Until January 14th, when officers found her sealed inside the wall of Douglas Whitmore's apartment. At the hospital, Tara described what had happened. She'd been walking home when a vehicle pulled alongside her. A man asked for directions. She stopped to help. He grabbed her. He pulled her into the vehicle. He drove her to an apartment building. He carried her inside. She tried to scream. He covered her mouth. He brought her to apartment 4B. He restrained her. He placed her inside the space behind the wall. He told her if she made noise, he would kill her. He sealed the wall. For 53 days, she was kept in that space, 3 feet wide, complete darkness. She could hear the television through the wall. She could hear neighbors in the hallway. She could hear Mrs. Parsons moving around in the adjacent apartment. Whitmore brought her water twice a day, sometimes food. He never spoke to her except to threaten her. She tried knocking on the wall when she thought he wasn't home. She knocked in patterns, hoping someone would hear, hoping someone would understand it wasn't normal. Mrs. Parsons heard. Douglas Whitmore was located at his workplace at 6:47 a.m. on January 15th. He was in the middle of his shift at the packaging facility when officers arrived. He didn't resist arrest. He didn't ask what it was about. He simply nodded and allowed himself to be handcuffed. At the station, Whitmore waived his right to an attorney. The interrogation began at 8:30 a.m. Detective Hendricks and Detective Carlson conducted it. Whitmore admitted to everything. He'd been watching Tara for weeks before he took her. He'd followed her home from work multiple times. He knew her schedule. He knew her route. On November 22nd, he'd been waiting. He'd built the hidden space in his apartment specifically for this purpose. He'd measured the dimensions. He'd removed the closet wall. He'd framed out the space. He'd installed the new drywall himself. It had taken him 3 weeks to complete the construction before he moved in. He'd planned this for months. When asked why he took Tara, Whitmore said he wanted company. Someone who couldn't leave. Someone who had to stay. Hendricks asked if there were others. Whitmore said no. Forensic teams searched his apartment thoroughly. They found no evidence of additional victims. They searched his previous residences. Nothing. Whitmore was charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, assault, and attempted murder. He entered a plea of guilty. He was sentenced to 60 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Tara Nichols spent 4 weeks in the hospital recovering. She suffered from severe PTSD. She couldn't be in enclosed spaces. She couldn't be alone in the dark. She had nightmares every night. She moved back in with her parents. She began intensive therapy. She didn't return to work for 8 months. Mrs. Parsons gave a statement to police describing the knocking she'd heard. Investigators determined Tara had been knocking for at least 5 days before Mrs. Parsons finally called 911. If she hadn't made that call, Tara might never have been found. Mrs. Parsons struggled with guilt. She wished she'd called sooner. Police assured her that her decision to call saved Tara's life. Greenwood Terrace conducted a full inspection of all units following the discovery. No other concealed spaces were found. The property manager implemented stricter background checks and more frequent unit inspections. Tara eventually returned to work. She moved to a different city. She changed her phone number. She limited her social media presence. She focused on rebuilding her life. The knocking she made inside that wall, 3 deliberate knocks, repeated over and over, hoping someone would hear, was what saved her. Mrs. Parsons heard, and she acted. Tara Nichols survived because a neighbor listened.